Hi everyone, welcome to Abundance, Wellness and Wealth. In this channel, we talk about how an abundance mindset, health, well-being, finance and money matters in our everyday life and how we can take control of that. In the last few episodes, we've been talking about one of the biggest best-selling books of the 20th century. It's called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. So in this book, we went through habits number 1 to 5 in the first 4 episodes. And now we'll be going through habit number 6 and habit number 7. So diving straight into it. So what is habit number 6? So habit number 6 is to synergise. It's one of the highly overused management words, synergetic relationships. But what does it actually mean? Have you delved into the core of synergetic relationships? So what Stephen says in his book is it requires an enormous level of internal potential. So it's pretty much bringing out the spirit of adventure, discovery, creativity by synergizing with others around you. So it's about striving for those win-win relationships where both of you come together and find a third solution to the problem. Something you haven't thought about, something that wasn't there in your mind in the first place when you started off with it. So for example, say one of the examples that Stephen goes through, let's go with that, is there was a couple. So the husband wanted to actually go somewhere else for fishing for their family holiday, whereas their wife wanted to be closer to her mother because she was going through some health problems and health challenges. So going through that experience as well, Stephen mentioned that there are possible number of outcomes and paths that the couple could have followed. A is to just go fishing because the man wanted to do that at this particular location, or B, they go where the wife wanted to go because she wanted to be closer to the parents, but at the same time, the husband would probably be missing out and the kids wouldn't have such a great time either. So what they ended up doing is pretty much striving a win-win relationship. So what does that mean? What does that look like? So they try to find a location which was closer to the mother's home, so the wife's mum's home. At the same time, they also found a location for fishing around that area as well. So it was pretty much not a compromise, but a win-win situation, which they came up with a solution, a third alternative, the better alternative of the two halves to go forward with. So what does Stephen also mean about like striving for a synergetic relationship, and how can you do that? Part of it also is encapsulated around being a trailblazer. So for example, if you want to do something adventurous, exciting in life, you would definitely need to go down the road less traveled. There's also an amazing book called The Road Less Traveled, and also there's a poem. I'd strongly advise you to watch that. Also, while we're here, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button if you're enjoying the contents of this channel, and also leave a comment behind as well, so that way I know what to structure this channel around, and yeah, better suited for your requirements as well as mine. So going back to habit number 6, which is synergize. So what does that actually mean, and what does that look like? So it's pretty much developing a huge central compass within yourself, an internal compass within yourself, of what you believe is right and wrong and the paths going forward. And it's not only just the path, but it's also the end goal. So what do you actually envision to achieve out of this? So for example, in that example that Stephen mentioned, that the wife wanted to go and be closer to her mum because she didn't know how long her mother would live, etc., etc. So there was a strong sense of purpose driving that particular aspiration. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that the husband has to succumb to every single alternative or everything that only the wife comes up with. They can both combine together, join forces, and find that third synergetic solution. So it also encapsulates and comes back to openness, authenticity, and being honest with yourself. So pretty much what Stephen did was also plot this. How do you know whether you're striving in a synergetic win-win relationship? With high trust, so you plotted the trust on the y-axis, and high, cooperation. That's right. Having a bit of a mental blank there. So high trust and high cooperation leads to synergetic relationships. If it's low trust and low cooperation, usually you'll find there's a lot of trust issues. It leads to toxic environments. Sometimes in workplaces that happens when people don't trust each other, and there's a lot of politicizing of issues, and people just take it for granted that that's how things are going to be. But no, you can always work together through open lines of communication that builds on that trust in order to strive for win-win relationships. I know it's super hard to do, to feel like you're being taken advantage of as well, but being true to yourself and trusting the process, really, like, trust me, it leads to better outcomes. It does. So you don't have to succumb to a lose-lose situation or try to take advantage of someone to think that that's the only way to get ahead in life. I think that's a very non-abundant thinking. Definitely striving for synergetic relationships where you both are winning and you're finding a third part, a better path, something that the other person sparked inside of you that made you think about it. Both of you adding value to that solution really strives for a higher goal and higher experience in life. The other thing that also a lot of different parts in, I think in religion as well, they talk about, I know in Buddhism they do, because I like to meditate and follow a lot of those Buddhist philosophies, and they always talk about the third part of the middle path. Usually, I used to always think that, okay, you need to meet someone halfway as being the middle path or the third path, or you need to just compromise in a relationship as well, where that's the third part. But that's not what synergizing means. That's not what win-win means. Compromising, settling means that you're not ready to challenge yourself. You're not ready to grow, both of you, like in the relationship. And I'm not just talking about at home, but any relationship in the workplace or anything else as well, where you're all coming together, trying to strive for a better path, a better solution that nobody thought on their own. And that doesn't mean it's the middle path, doesn't mean that, you know, you kind of halve the difference between the two and that's the solution. That's kind of being a bit more logical over there. But Stephen says you need to trust the process and drive the outcome through authenticity, trust, and being true to yourself, having high internal integrity. And that's like a very important one, having that high internal compass to lead yourself through the process and trusting the process. And the last and final one is honesty and openness. That again builds on that trust. And again, trust me, that really leads to better outcomes and decision making as well. And next, we'll be moving on to the final habit, which is to encapsulate all of the first 6 habits into one. And that's, when you read the book as well, it's pictographically referenced in that way as well, where you've got the different habits inside a massive circle, and the circle outside is habit number 7, which is to bring all of the other habits, 6 habits together. And habit number 7 is sharpen the saw. So what does that mean? What does sharpen the saw mean? So, well, and how do you do it? You know, so those were a couple of questions that came up in my mind when I was reading the chapter. So pretty much what that means is having a high intrinsic value of yourself, of the path that you're taking, and you know where you want to drive this journey towards. So what does that again look like? So in terms of sharpening the saw, there are different elements that Stephen mentions you need to work on. So more often than not, we work on the physical environment, something that we can see with our eyes. And that is it's a very one-dimensional thinking, that you can see something and you only work on that element. There are other layers of existence, and it also in yoga as well, they mention there are other layers of existence, and it's only through the harmony of all of these layers do you actually live a more fulfilled life, more wholesome life, and a more abundant life that you continue to grow in. So what are the other layers? So in Stephen's book, he talks about the physical sheath, or the physical layer, the emotional sheath, the spiritual sheath, as well as the social sheath. So going through all of these layer by layer, and just like kind of breaking it down a bit. So what does this physical sheath of abundance mean, and how do you sharpen the saw? So how many times, do we, even I always fall victim to this, especially with COVID and lockdown, is we just say, oh, you don't really need that 1 hour exercise. We can just do something else at home, and then you just end up watching TV. You become more of a consumer, and you just start to consume whatever someone else has developed for you. So you're being more of an influenced person as opposed to an influential person, and you're taking in more content than you're creating, especially with television. That is like, if you use it the right way, it can be very powerful. Like, for example, in my particular journey, sometimes I do wear off track and look at all of these other meme videos, but more often than not, I'm trying to train myself to watch only informative education videos, blocking out news channels. So it's just being a bit more selective with the information that you watch. And that is sharpening the saw at the physical level. Another example that Stephen gives is also around exercise. So keeping exercising is more so a quadrant 2 activity. So I think if you remember being proactive, we spoke about the activities which are high important but not urgent yet. Exercise falls into that category, and eventually it catches up to you, and then by the time it catches up to you, it's like, oh shoot, it's too late now, I can't do anything about it. But being proactive about it and getting your 3 hours a week is absolutely crucial. So getting out there, starting the process, go for that run and continue to break that cycle of staying back at home and like watching TV. Go out for a walk, start off with a walk and then start with a run and continue to build on that. Just monitor it. That's what Stephen says as well. A key activity is to have a notebook for every single week, and then write down like the goals that you've achieved for that week and the progress that you've made since last week. It could be tiny, minuscule progress, but continue to record your progress towards the ultimate goal that you're striving for. So that is more at a physical sheath or a physical layer. Find time to do that as well. So other things, like even with exercise, we get it, like there are other core components that people need to focus on. So it's not only just strength, but it's also flexibility. It's also endurance. So when you go in for your runs, do you follow up with a bit of weights at the end, and do you also follow up with a bit of stretching at the end? If you don't, you need to start incorporating those as well, especially with flexibility and strength and flexibility in yoga and stretches. Usually it's advised to do after, because the lactic acid that's built up in your system, it needs to be released out, or else it leads to a lot of strain and stiffness in the body. And that's done through flexibility and flexibility training. So yoga, stretches as well. So that's the physical sheet. And next we'll be going through the social element. So social element comes into play and building on that through empathetic listening, synergetic relationships, and also having a very intrinsic centered north compass, which drives your internal leadership forward. You're confident in your own skin, especially when you're interacting with people as well. So building on that social, emotional, service-driven, empathetic-driven mindset really leads to a very fulfilling life. So it could be through volunteering or through other, charitable organizations, really giving back. Or you could be working for a non-for-profit as well, or a charity organization. It's very soothing, especially at the social and at that emotional level. Very comforting feeling. And also empathetic listening. When you listen and hear out someone else's side of the story, what their experience is, how they're viewing, say even COVID or any other situation, how they're experiencing it, that makes a massive difference. Next, we'll be moving on to one of my favorite sheets, which is the spiritual sheet. I think this is a very important layer or sheath where Stephen talks about clarifying your values, your commitment to studying and educating yourself, not only about your profession, but other areas in life, and the constant practice of meditation. So these are some of the areas that Stephen encourages everyone to focus and develop on. So for example, for myself, I try to do Vipassana every year, and that really is a helpful practice for me to go away for 10 days to reflect on myself, how I feel, what area of life that I want to bring about change, and how I want to live my life going forward. It just creates a better impact in terms of the value that I add in life as well, because I've noticed if I just plod along and not really acknowledge myself, my needs, and that spiritual element within me, it does catch up to you. And remember, you only have one life to live, one life to make a massive difference and influence, and you don't want to be just plodding along. So really coming back to that core, that center, finding that higher purpose and higher path and connecting with it all the time. It's like who you are. It's really powerful. It's getting to know yourself at the core, at the heart, what you can do, and being real with the areas that you don't want to build on or don't want to do because it's not aligned to your values. It really comes down to that. So getting more of that spiritual clarity, it's very important in the sharpening the saw as well. And the last element, which is the mental one, ta-da! I think everyone knows what that one is. So it's about taking time out to read, plan, do visualization activities, and also to write things out. So what do I mean by reading? Reading books in areas that you want to develop in. Remember, someone's written that book with 25, 30 years of experience. They're giving you that knowledge for $20, $30. Like, I can't even imagine how people just don't read. Like, I love to read, and it's Stephen mentioned as well in the book. It's like, if you're not reading, it's pretty much the same as not having that skill at all, like not building that skill of reading at all. So really getting into that habit of reading 1 chapter, 2 chapters a day. Just keep a book next to your bedside and just read a few chapters every single day. You will definitely learn something. Something inside of your head will click. Something inside, like, you know, new neurons will form as well. So it's just about building on that skill set in that mental level. Next is writing. So how many times do you take time out to write the either your events in life, how you're feeling, or journaling? That's a very powerful tool, because when you reflect in your life 1 or 2 years ago, you'll see the transformation, the journey that you've taken, and how far you've come. You'll also have a personal growth record of yourself, so that way you can start to take on newer challenges as well. So journaling is a really powerful tool in writing. The next one is visualization. So every year when we set a New Year resolution, instead of setting resolutions where, we say, oh, we're going to lose weight, like 5 kilos or something like that, it's more powerful to set visual imagery of what you strive to do and where you strive to go. Drawing it out or having like a vision board it's super powerful. Absolutely powerful. So draw it out, visualize it, dream about it. I encourage all of you to sleep longer hours and dream about these things as well. It's totally worth it. And the last thing is to also plan what are your next steps, where you intend to go, where you plan to go. Be proactive in that area. So working on those elements is about sharpening the saw. So the physical, the mental, the spiritual, as well as the emotional sheath, or the social sheath. So working in all of those areas, like we mentioned, would not only lead you to better health benefits as a consequence of that, but also a more fulfilled life. You'll be more true to yourself. You'll be surrounded by happy, healthy relationships, and especially synergetic win-win relationships. And you would probably ask, is it worth it? High urgent tasks which are absolutely important and which are due now. And every single task that we do day to day, we live in that more reactive stage of our existence as opposed to the more proactive stage of our existence. So we need to start to move away and live in the more proactive stage, and like, you know, not only exist in the reactive stage. And building on all of these 4 different layers will help you to personally advance in life as well. So out of all of these, you know, what is it that we start to kind of, the most powerful messages that I take away is whenever you're speaking to someone as well and they're sharing something, you can always take a step back and say, you know, actually, can you repeat that? Because I wasn't listening. I really want to listen to you first and see the impact and the effect that would create for your relationship. Another element also is when you see a relationship breaking down, you can say something along the lines that I really want to work on this and solve this together with you. Will you be on board with me? And can we both strive to achieve a solution together? And let me hear you out first as well in the process. So it just creates a massive difference and massive shift. And it creates what Stephen calls the upward spiral as opposed to the downward spiral. So what is the upward spiral? Upward spiral is you learn, you commit, and you do. So you learn something, you commit to the cause, and you do it. Learn, commit, and do. And continue to build on that. And that really elevates you to the next level, the next you know, playing field, as well as a higher level of existence. So with that, we come to the end of today's video. Thank you for listening in. The 7 habits, which is to be proactive, to begin with the end in mind, to put first things first, to think win-win, seek to understand, then to be understood, synergise, and sharpen the saw. So these are all the 7 habits that Stephen captures in his book. I hope you enjoyed the book summaries. Hit a like, again, a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe at the bottom of the video. And thank you again for listening. My soul reaches out to yours and acknowledges it. Namaste. Have a good night. See you later. Bye.